Welcome back. You were Talk Today. What is it, 18 minutes past 9? Now, it's typically called free speech, but what if speaking came at a cost? A new report today suggests that protesters may have to foot the bill for policing costs as a way to keep them under control.
The protests against the war in Israel and Palestine is said to have cost the taxpayer an estimated £20 million to deploy police officers to control crowds. Well, let's look at this. Here to discuss it is Dr. Alex Lockwood from the animal rights group Animal Rising, who says charging protesters is not the way to go about it. It makes it harder for ordinary people. Meanwhile, Trevor Kavanagh from The Sun says asking protesters to pay is the least they can do. Trevor, why so?
Well, I agree with Alex that free speech is the foundation stone of democracy, along with freedom of the press. Without them, you don't have democracy. But there is a borderline between proper organised protest, which is acceptable, and that which spills over into, to some extent, violence, and to a large extent, the disruption of the whole of the rest of that region, particularly in south west London, where the streets are blocked for long periods of Saturday, every week now, and for what looks like the indefinite future. And I think that gets to the point when you have to use the resources of a very large proportion of your metropolitan police, which is already overstretched, to keep that demonstration in order. And I think that a contribution should be made by those who organise it.
Can I bring you in, Alex? Animal Rising is a very different proposition. Yes, we talked about what happened at the Grand National. We know that you disrupted the Derby. Very different to thousands of anti-Israeli or pro-Israeli or anti-Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, I'll do it for that reason, in London, blocking up an entire city. Absolutely agree with Trev. There has to be the right for free speech. But if people's lives, organisations, towns and cities are spending millions dealing with this, surely, if you want the right to do it, you should pay for it.
I believe that we need to do everything we can in this country to stop thinking that democracy can only be for the rich. Like, if you vote, if you can only protest because you've got enough money to pay for it, that's a very slippery slope into something that's very anti-democratic, and we don't want to go there. So we agree, actually, therefore, free speech, protest is a right of people in this country. And I know, for example, people have brought up the example of, well, people go to sports, you know, go and watch a football game, and that, you know, the sports clubs pay for the policing there. Shouldn't it be the same sort of system? But I think it's very different from people going to watch their sporting team on a Saturday afternoon, a family who support that team, from a family who are outraged about, for example, the slaughter of children in Gaza, who need to be heard. And I think the problem is in this country is that most people don't feel heard by the government. They don't have answers, which is why actually the government wants to shut down people, because they don't have answers on Palestine, they don't have answers on the climate, they don't have answers on our food system, they don't have answers on the cost of living. And it's really vitally important for people to be able to stand up, take to the streets without the fear of having their pockets, you know, more money stolen from their pockets by government, to be able to express that right.
Yeah, because Trev, you don't want to have a situation where a protest group says, actually, we can't afford to exercise our right to free speech.
Well, I think that free speech is one thing, disorder is another. And when you get very large numbers of people who are out there in order to disrupt quite deliberately the shopping streets of the West End every Saturday, in one way or another, then I think it takes it away from freedom of speech to the point where it is intimidation. And I mean, the idea that this is something that's only available to the rich is just preposterous. And I think that's a red herring you've thrown in here. You don't have to have hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people on this demonstration to get your voice heard. You don't have to bring London to a standstill every Saturday in order to get your voice heard. There is a lot of sympathy for the cause of both the Palestinians and the Jews in this. If this were a march by Jews in the same sort of numbers as your Palestinians, it would be regarded by the community that you're representing as totally unacceptable.
That's not true. But what I want to do is actually say, Lord Walney, the author of this report that's coming out and saying that perhaps, you know, protests should pay for this, back in 2021, he actually said that environmentalists are not extreme and that actually we haven't gone fast or far enough on climate.
I think we're going to have a debate on what side of the political spectrum. Let's get to the point. The point is if you absolutely have a right to protest. Yeah. We're going to get into an argument about who said, I'm not bothered about that. Is it right if your protest under the banner of free speech means that you disrupt people's lives, you cost the taxpayer, that's what we're talking about, 20 million quid. Why should the rest of us pay for you to protest? I agree with you. That's not about the rich or the poor, that's everybody. Do you protest? You're animal rising. I don't happen to agree with what you say, but you have an absolute right to do it. Are you saying that you attack horse racing because rich people own horses? Are you saying that the pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli marches are rich people? No, I'm saying if they cause disruption, why should the rest of us pick up your bill?
Most marches pass off very peacefully. We have a strong tradition of non-violence around protest. Most marches, actually, are very well stewarded by the organisers themselves. They are over-policed. We don't actually need to spend that amount of money that we do on policing these marches. Yes, we would actually rather, that you go and actually maybe chase down some of the actual criminals, like, Lord Moan in the Lords, who's run off with all of our PPE money, vastly outweighing the amount of money that's spent on protests.
You need the police because of the very large numbers and the fact that you're saying they're peaceful. They describe them as mostly peaceful. What that means is that there are large, actually quite significant outbreaks of violence, but the broad masses are peaceful. They move through peacefully. But there is sufficient violence which is taking place on the streets, which the police need to be there to marshal.
I mean,
you're in charge of this, or the people who organise are in charge of it.
I mean, I refute that. I mean, nearly all of the people I know within the movement who are trying to make this a more democratic country by getting government to listen when they're not listening.
Your movement or every movement?
Most movements that I know of, who are trying to make this country more democratic by getting government to listen to what people's unsatisfied demands are.
But you haven't. I've only got 30 seconds. You haven't answered my question. I'm absolutely for democracy. I'm absolutely free speech. Why should the rest of us pick up the bill if underline, there are costs associated? Why should we?
We have an absolute right to protest. We have an absolute democratic right to freedom of speech. And let me tell you this:
You've got 10 seconds.
Democracy is a fragile thing, and we need to protect it. And we will miss it when it's gone.
And you're taking advantage of it.
We'll miss it when it's gone.
The two of them disagree. That is all I have time for this morning. We have time for on Talk today. Thank you so much indeed for watching.